So my name's John Gonzalez. I'm the head of sales for the Americas at Sievo. I've been with the company going on 3 years now, and I also have some managing director responsibilities. So I have operational oversight, but predominantly my role is overseeing new sales and the expansion of our portfolio and our footprint in the Americas. The collaboration with Nordics GTM started, I want to say, maybe 9 months ago. They reached out to our global head of sales, who then asked me to sort of do some research and look into Tony and his team. Really, the catalyst for that change for us is that, I think the industry's changing and the tech space, the landscape is changing pretty dramatically. And some of the old ways of working were no longer effective
Mm.
for Sievo. And so we needed a better way to reach out to our prospects, a more efficient and effective way to target them, and obviously close more business, right? So a better way to
Mm.
build our pipeline. So that's how the discussion started, but yeah, it's been really successful ever since.
Yeah, and could you walk us briefly through what was the starting point? So how you actually did the outbound, how the operating model between the SDRs and sales looked back then?
Yeah, it was, I wouldn't say too traditional because we did some sequencing and, we were leveraging AI to some degree, but it was, I would call it a little more old school. The mindset was reach out to as many people as possible, maybe do a little bit of targeting, do some
Mm.
account-based marketing. We've done a lot of that in the past and it had historically been very successful. What I think was a catalyst for us is that a lot of those tools were no longer working and we needed something that was a little more effective with reaching the right audience and making sure we were
Mm.
talking to the right customers with the right message. So we needed it to be a little more crisp, and we
Mm.
also needed to enable our SDRs to work a little bit better with our AE team. So what was happening in the past was they might have like a one weekly cadence where they would sync up, like agree on a list of accounts, and then the SDR would go off on his own or her own and target those accounts and then come back and report in a week. So it's kind of very
Mm.
traditional, right?
Yeah, traditional
And
from the 90s, early
yes,
2000s. Yeah.
exactly. And so while that worked, in the past, it's starting
Mm.
to become apparent that we needed a new approach.
And how does an effective, let's say, SDR, AE, account executive pairing look like in a day-to-day practice today? So what changed?
Yeah, quite a bit. So now first of all, they have two weekly cadences that are a little more dedicated. They're now doing a lot more of the planning together. So they're doing the research together. We're leveraging AI technology to do a lot of that research. So rather than manual
Mm.
time spent, you know, 1 to 3 hours per prospect trying to understand the relevant cases, all of that is automated. So a lot of that came from some of the tooling that we learned from GTM and sort of how to leverage some of that technology, but
Mm.
also how to put it into practice and into cadence. So we have the two weekly cadences, and then they're working with each other more in real time. So they're both using LinkedIn, they're partnering on some of the tooling like for outreach and things of that nature. So it's a lot tighter of an
Mm.
integration, and they're working more as a like it's more of a symbiotic relationship. They're
Yeah.
working just closer together rather than delegating work to each other.
Yeah. And based on that tight collaboration alignment, what is the concrete outcomes you see as a leader that tight pairing is driving across the board?
The clearest change that I've seen is that our messaging is a lot more crisp and relevant. So the response rate has gone up from our prospects because of that, and the relevancy of our message, I think, is
Mm.
just more spot on, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's the tangible benefit. Like we're seeing an uptick in the response rate for our emails. We're seeing more engagement on the intro calls because the message we're delivering to the prospect is more on point. And then in terms of the interactions between the AE and the SDR team, it just feels more like a team. I don't know. That's hard to quantify, but it just feels like
Yeah.
they're working closer together and they're more aligned, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And do you see any other, let's say, outcomes from the crisp messaging? Are we going higher in the organization, targeting maybe new group of the people, or maybe new stakeholders getting involved, and anything, or we getting bigger accounts, more like in a more in a confident way?
Yeah, yeah. A couple things have changed. So like the
Yeah.
paradigm, I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to take a step back first. The paradigm for our outbound effort and sort of how we approach outbound in our
Mm,
thought process is very different. I'll give you an example. Conferences for us now are intel gathering. Whereas we used to try to get people, scan badges and we'll call you and follow up with you. Now, because of this new framework, we use conferences and events and in-person events as a way to gather intelligence to craft our message to then
mm,
call into a more senior leader within the organization.
yeah.
So I may run into a director level, get the intelligence I need to feed our outbound process with a relevant message to a VP or a C-level person.
Yeah.
So yes, now to answer your question, we're now targeting more senior level people with more carefully crafted messages that are more relevant to them, with
Yeah.
stories that resonate rather than us trying to guess at what's happening. We can come back to a leader saying, we know these are the problems you're experiencing, and this is how
Mm,
we can address it.
yeah.
So that's a very fundamentally different approach than what we were doing 9 months ago.
And maybe the quick question, how the market responses on that approach. So what are the buyers saying to your salespeople, or how they are reacting when people are coming more prepared, maybe in a different way than maybe 99% of the salespeople they meet?
Yeah, great question. I wish I could say they're just buying right on the spot. But that's not how it works, right? But what we are seeing is that we're getting less send me information. I don't have time right now. Call me later. We're
Mm,
getting a lot less of that. We're getting more like, wait, I'm sorry, what did you say? Like who did you talk to? So now we're
mm,
getting the engagement very quickly and more effectively where they want to understand more and they will, even if they're delegating it to someone
mm,
like let's say on the COE team, we're now getting engagement early and it feels more effective that way.
yeah.
So I would say that we're not necessarily, closing deals in the first call, right? That I wish that was the case.
Yeah.
It's more about getting their attention and now able to schedule the next step rather than
Yeah.
getting ignored.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about the outbound getting meetings, but has this framework model that we implemented within the salespeople or sales frameworks, has that changed how we actually run first discovery meetings, how we actually maybe engage new stakeholders in the existing deals and expand, let's say, the 360 view on the accounts we work already?
Yes, yes. And this goes back to what I was
Mm,
mentioning earlier that the paradigm has shifted for us
yeah.
because we're now more prepared for that discussion because we have a pretty good understanding, at least at a high level, for what some of the key initiatives are within the organization, even before we talk to the customer. So the
Mm,
conversations are just more relevant.
yeah.
And so it becomes easier to sort of schedule sequencing of the next step, like maybe a
Mm,
demo or talking to the COE team is now much easier and faster. So
yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but
100%.
okay.
And I think the interesting part you mentioned that I wished I would close deals in our first call. So
Hmm.
could you tell about the customers you are actually targeting? What type of the companies, sizes, and what type of the end users or stakeholders you typically get involved with? So to get a deeper
Yeah,
understanding about the
that's another good point, and I'll answer your question directly. But let me talk about our ICP. So our ICP is companies over $1 billion. So it's enterprise
mm,
customers, typically global, with a lot of complexity within their operations. So for us, a company that is spending more than 1 billion in basically indirect or direct spend, industry agnostic, so we pretty much work in any industry, but it's definitely in the enterprise space. Our sales process takes many months, many steps, so we're dealing with the enterprise type customers. And the level of people that we target is generally on the procurement side. So it's anyone from the chief procurement officer down to the center of excellence leads. Occasionally, we'll talk to directors and maybe even like category managers for some of that intelligence gathering that I was alluding to, but
mm,
our true target is the senior level VP, CPO level type person. Yeah. So what we learned from you guys. is
Yeah.
to obviously leverage AI to do some of that manual work, not so much on the automation of process. So it's not the email automation and the, developing of content, regarding email that we've been doing for some time, but it's really teaching our agents to find the right insights that we can
Mm.
leverage on a discussion. So that's something that we've really embraced. So, and you know this, but I'll just say it for the purpose of the audience. We're leveraging AI to sort of do research for us on our behalf. So, for example, our agent will find any key initiatives that are publicly known, any leadership changes that are publicly known, promotions that are publicly known, etc., and any public information available in terms of corporate goals or corporate
Mm.
sort of challenges that they may be facing. We're finding information on any like YouTube videos that may have been published, any speeches, any topics, etc. All of that's being consolidated into one place and then filtered down into three or four or five talking points
Mm.
that you can use for either an email or a discussion. So that's how that has changed.
And if we kind of summarize the outcomes you mentioned throughout the call, that
Mhm.
we are getting better traction within the customers, we engaging with stakeholders, we are coming more prepared, customers are maybe being more positive towards our preparation and
Mhm.
pre-work we do, tighter alignment between the AEs and SDRs, more maybe let's say mature way of working and
Mhm.
modern type of the of working. Is there any kind of concrete outcomes yet we are seeing, like in terms of are we getting meetings that or even opportunities that we would maybe have not got in the old
Yes.
way of doing things?
Yes. Without sharing too much,
Yeah.
what I can tell you is that the concrete measurement we've been using is pipeline creation. And so we've seen a significant uptick in that space. We've also seen our discussions progressing a little bit faster and so what that means for us is that our sales cycle is shrinking slightly. So let's say it was 6 months, we've probably seen a 3 to 4 week reduction because the discovery phase is much faster. We're sort of jumping in midway of a discovery session. We're
Mm.
not asking basic questions anymore. We're really talking about the business and the impacts. So that tends to speed things up. We're also getting to the right people faster. So I think that is shrinking
Mm.
the lead times. But the most clear, concrete example I could share with you is that our pipeline has been impacted in a
Mm.
very positive way with this new approach.
Glad
And
to hear, John.
yeah, and then given enough time, then our close rates will also be impacted. We're not
Yeah.
quite there yet, but it's getting there.